Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing a player review, and I'm sorry I didn't have anything out yesterday. I've been really busy, guys. I have been setting up collaborations with some other YouTubers. It's going to be coming out soon. I've been putting together that team for the all-time game in the NL West, and that has proved to be extremely tedious. There were a ton of players to grade in this, and actually we're only going to be reviewing the pitchers today, and then we're going to review the hitters tomorrow, because I was going to film all of it, but it was getting upwards of like an hour long, so I'm going to have to break it up into two videos, but we're going to be doing the pitchers today. Let's jump into it. Okay, starting out, we have the Hashi Ewauma, and this card is, you know, just kind of a thing. I really like its pitch selection. It's got a lot of really solid pitches. I love the splitter. I love the sinker. The only problem is he doesn't throw that hard, and he doesn't have great pronines, and that's typically not a very good mix. But there are some things to like about this card. You don't necessarily have to throw very hard if you know how to utilize a sinker really good. And he's probably going to have really good break on that sinker along with the splitter. And he also has a nice little slider and curveball to go along with it. If the pronines were better, let's say if he had like 79k pronine to go along with 77 hit, I would like this card a lot more. I would think that it would be usable at that point. I think this card is usable as is, but I think that he would be usable on like an elite team if that were the case, but it's not. So, you know, this is a card that might be useful in like events or something like that, but all in all, just not a great card, but I do think it is above average. I ended up giving him a fag of a 6.9. And now that I think about it, a 6.9 is pretty high on this guy, but according to my formula, he did really poorly on the pronine section and on the stuff section, but because his pitch selection is so compelling, it ended up kind of driving his score up, so that's where I came up with a 6.9, but admittedly, that might be a little high for him. Next up, we have the Wainwright, and guys, I love this card. I absolutely love this card. This is, if I decide to go for any of those missions that you have to complete to get like the Utley and the Vizquel and all this, this would be the guy that I went for. First of all, his pronines are very solid. They're not great. Typically 160 is whenever you start to get into like that elite type of territory for a starting pitcher. This guy comes 3 points short of that with a 157, but he is over that 155 mark that I find necessary to have a guy in your rotation. But his pronines aren't the reason you want this card. The reason you want this card, his pitch selection is amazing. The only kind of knock I have against it is I kind of wish that he had a slider. Maybe if that four-seam were a really good slider instead, this guy would be like unbelievable. But as it stands, he's still extremely good. He has a great sinker with great break, a big slow curveball that's extremely tough to hit, a nice little cutter that kind of acts like a slider. He doesn't throw it super hard, and it kind of has slider movement to it, but it's still a cutter. You can tell it's a cutter. And then a circle change and a four-seam to top it off. And his stuff is really good too. Like, he throws harder than you would expect Wainwright to throw, but you're not really worried about that much velocity. Really, the big selling point on this card is that amazing sinker that he has, paired with his really good pronines too. I really like this card. I don't think he's elite in the sense that I don't think he's like over a 9, but I do think he is in the mid 8s. So I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.5. Okay, moving on, we're going to a relief pitcher, and it is the 89 Raleigh Fingers. Guys, this card, I think a lot of people are going to end up selling this card a little bit short. His pronines are very solid for reliever, but typically you want those like high elite, 99 overall pronines for your reliever. He doesn't have that, but what he does, by the way, guys, this is the first usable Raleigh Fingers card that we've had in this game. I firmly believe that, because his pitch selection is just so good. Sinker, slider, four-seam, splitter. That splitter finally acts like a changeup, finally gives him a fourth viable pitch. that he can pitch to left-handers. Before, he was only a guy you could probably use against righties, and against lefties, oftentimes he'd get hit really hard. With that splitter, it keeps those lefties a little more honest to where they have to worry about the sinker, worry about that splitter, and it just makes him a more balanced pitcher overall. And his stuff is pretty good too. It's not elite, kind of like his per-nines, but 74 velocity, 84 break, that's enough to get the job done. I think that this guy is definitely a viable reliever on a very good team, and I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.0. A lot of people are going to think that's high. I don't. I think that this guy has the potential to be in your bullpen for potentially the rest of the year. I think people are going to undersell this card. Okay, next up we have the 92 overall Matt Cain, and this card is also another guy who is pretty compelling. His per-nines are not great. They're kind of like the Ewaumas in that sense. He comes in at a 150 hit and K per 9 combined. That's still below that 155 threshold, but it's not terrible. Like, if you have to go with a guy like that, it's definitely something you could do and get away with it. He has very good pitch selection. He has basically, you know, just a basic pitch selection laid out: 4-seam, 2-seam, changeup, slider, curveball. The only difference being that his curveball is a 12-6, which can be good. A lot of people seem to struggle against 12-6s. A lot of people hit them hard. It just kind of depends on who you're facing. His stuff is okay. He doesn't throw extremely hard, but he can get it up there hard enough to where, you know, guys can't just like sit on the off speed and react to the fastball. And his all-speed stuff is pretty good too, has decent break on it. I think that this guy is marginally better than the Ewauma, but I don't think he's like head and shoulders above him, so I ended up putting his fag at a 7.1. Next up, we have probably my favorite pitcher in this release, and that's just me being honest, the 92 overall Gerrit Cole. This card is a stud, guys. He is an absolute stud. And it's kind of tough for me to say that, because if you look at his per-nines, he is not unbelievable. They come out to a 149, which is even worse than the Matt Cain, but there are some things that make up for it. First of all, his pitch selection is on point. He has that sinker, slider, curveball, changeup, 4-seam, all on point. When you add the fact in that he has 99 velocity, he is going to be running it up to 99, potentially triple digits. He has a money sinker to go along with that. This guy starts to look a lot like a Noah Syndergaard type, and I think that this guy's break on his pitches might even be better than the Noah Syndergaard. But I still think, you know, because of the per-nines and everything, that Syndergaard is more of an elite pitcher. But I think that this guy could come into your rotation and be an ace, depending on what your team looks like. He's definitely my favorite pitcher in this release, and I gave him a fag of an 8.9. And I ended up boosting his fag just a little bit because of just how hard he throws. Everybody knows how valuable velocity can be, but when you add in that velocity with a great sinker too, it just becomes that much tougher to hit. So I think an 8.9 is fair for Gerrit Cole. Next up is the 98 overall Bruce Sutter, and this guy is going to be graded really lowly compared to where you would think a 98 overall should be graded. But the fact is on the per-9 side, he killed it. He has great per-9s and also has some control to go along with it. The 93, 96 K per 9 is great, no doubt about it, but he got knocked a lot for his stuff and his pitch selection. His pitch selection is, you know, like basically a splitter 4-seam slider, and that splitter will kind of act as like a changeup. And I typically like splitters more than changeups, so that's good. But if you don't have a really, really good fastball to play off of that splitter, it ends up getting not that hard to hit. So that's going to be an issue with this card. And also his stuff, you know, obviously he has great break and everything, but his velocity just isn't there, and that kills him a ton. For a relief pitcher, you have to have some semblance of velocity. You have to be a guy that you can rely on him going in there and dominating for you. And I think that you could probably use this guy fairly effectively, but I don't think he's going to dominate for you. I don't think he's going to get a lot of strikeouts. He's just not an amazing pitcher. And because of that, I ended up grading him out at a 6.6, and that's going to be a low to a lot of people, but on the stuff and the pitch selection side, I just had to knock him a lot because I just don't believe in this card. I don't have a lot of belief in the 98 overall Bruce Sutter. Coming up next, we have the 92 overall Johnny Cueto, and this is another guy that I really, really like and I really find compelling. His per nines are great. He has 87, 76. I think that comes out to what, a 163. That is very, very good. Getting into that elite territory for a starter. His stuff is phenomenal. 81, 97. Very, very good for a starter. And his pitch selection is very good. Do I wish he had a sinker instead of a two-seam? Yes. That would make this guy one of the best pitchers in the game. He doesn't, but he does have a really good four-seam cutter combo along with that changeup, along with the slider that can be very, very, very effective. And guys, I really like this Cueto card. And that 97 break, I believe it's on his changeup. I could be wrong about that. It might be on his cutter. But it still makes him a very, very, very effective pitcher. And I really like this guy. I gave him a fag of an 8.8, and I think he's worth every point of it. And finally, I present to you, in my opinion, the best gold pitcher in the game. Not definitively, because I'd have to go through and look at everybody, but at this point, I have not seen a gold pitcher, especially an 85 overall gold pitcher, who has looked this good to me. This guy is amazing for an 85 gold. I honestly, I don't know how he is an 85 gold. He has diamond quality stuff, guys. A 166 combined per nine. That is right up there with some of the best starters, best diamond starters in the game. His pitch selection is amazing for a lefty, four-seam, sinker, slider, changeup, curveball. That is fantastic. And his stuff is great. 83 velocity is amazing for a left-handed pitcher. There are very, very few lefty pitchers in this game who even get above 80. And he has a really good off-speed pitches too. Really good break, slider, changeup, curveball. This is a guy I could see being in my rotation. Beanie's God Squad, this guy could make it. This guy, I'm amazed that Scott Kazmir has an 85 overall that looks this good in the game. I don't think he's the best pitcher that they released in this last patch. I think a couple others have him kind of knocked out of that, but I still think he's like right up there with him, only like a point or two below that. So I ended up putting his fag at an 8.4. But okay, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Player Review. Tomorrow we will be doing all of the hitters. I already have all of them graded and everything. I've just got to get in here and film it and edit it up and get it out there. In the meantime, I'm going to try to put out a gameplay video today as well. Later on, it'll probably be out around 3 or 4, something like that, a little later in the day. And then tomorrow I plan on releasing a player review, and I plan on finally doing the all-time NL West championship between the Dodgers and the Giants. We still have to do that. But anyways, guys, I will see y'all tomorrow, or later today, I guess. Peace!